Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. And on today's video, I have a good one for you because I think enjoying our run is probably the most important thing that we want to do, right? We want to enjoy running. Now, I know for the most part, if you're watching me and you're watching me because you probably enjoy running already, or at least you enjoy the idea of running, I'm sure you can still get behind the idea that when we enjoy it, running is better. Well, because of that, I came across an article that actually shows that a certain type of running shoes makes running more enjoyable. Let's get into it. All right, thanks for sitting through that intro. Look, now a lot of you may have switched off during that intro, but really that intro is just an invitation to like this video and subscribe to my channel. And I know it comes a little early, but let me just get this out of the way. And that if you are enjoying any of my content, probably this video because you're watching it at the moment, I would love it if you gave this video a like. And if you feel like subscribing, I know it's just a vanity metric, but I'm quite vain and I would love it if you did. But anyway, moving on to the actual substance of this video, came across an article in Canadian Running Magazine. And the article is titled, "Super Shoes Make Running More Enjoyable. Study shows." So in this video, we're going to talk about that study. And we're also going to talk about if super shoes actually make running more enjoyable. So look, a lot of you have probably started running in the last couple of years, right? We had that huge running boom post-COVID. And so if you have started running since COVID, then you haven't known a running world without carbon-plated super shoes. In fact, since COVID, I think we've had every brand has had one out there. I mean, if not when COVID hit in 2019, in the years coming after, we have definitely seen like super shoe editions from most every running brand. But for those of you that aren't aware, the whole super shoe thing started back in 2017, and I've actually brought a prop out for this one. This one actually lives in my closet, and every once in a while I'll take this shoe out to look at it, but this was the original. This was the OG super shoe. This was the Nike Vaporfly 4%. And the reason that Nike called it the 4% was because studies showed that it could improve performance by 4%. And 4% is a lot, right? You know this. If you are racing any kind of distance, if somebody handed you something to wear and said, "Oh, by the way, this is going to make you 4% faster," you would be like, "Yes, please," and you would take it. Now, back when this shoe was released, it cost $250, which if you are alive today, $250 is a lot of money. In 2017, it was still a lot of money, maybe even more lot of money. But Nike sold out of this shoe because they were marketing a dream. They were marketing a dream backed up by science. And of course, that science backing was actually in the name. And since then, since 2017, with the advent of super shoes, we have seen times in running races drop, like from the shortest, 5K all the way up to the marathon, probably even ultra marathon, right? These shoes make us faster. Or do they? Now, here's the thing. That article in Canadian Running, and of course I'm going to link to it in the show notes below, so you can check it out if you want, but that article is actually very short, but it's based off of a study. And the study was published in the journal Footwear Science, and the actual study was done back in 2024, and then accepted in January 2025. So as far as studies go, I mean, it's fairly recent, and I think it was actually pretty fascinating, at least for me. In fact, if you are still watching this video, I think maybe you will find it fascinating too, because you're probably a shoe nerd, at least a little bit. I am definitely a shoe nerd, and because I review so many shoes, I do have an inside look on how I feel running in several different types of shoes. And I do realize that I am just a cog in the marketing machine of all the brands that I bring you shoe reviews of, right? They send me these shoes to review, and I get to run in them, and I see their marketing copy, and I put my own thoughts in with it. But the point is that I am delivering a message. And if that message is true for you, it's somewhat irrelevant, because really I'm only bringing you my opinion. But that's a good thing, because this study is actually titled, "Are Super Shoes a Placebo? A Randomized Crossover Trial in Female Recreational Runners." First of all, I do like to see a study that is just using female runners. And this study is using 24 of them. So yes, a very small subset of the female population. Now, I should say that this study was conducted in New Zealand. Not that that means anything as far as the physiology of running goes, but I'm actually not familiar with the running scene in New Zealand, nor am I familiar with like the marketing practices of various brands and how they operate in New Zealand. But somehow I think maybe it's not as prevalent as some other marketing heavy countries. But then we're all just bound by the internet, and if you're into running, then you're just looking this stuff up online and you know everything that everybody else knows. Anyway, in order to select these female athletes for the study, there were certain criteria. And the criteria included that they must have been running for at least 6 months, and they must currently be running at least once a week. They also have to run a 5K in 20 minutes or more. They've also got to be comfortable running on a treadmill and must have the ability to run for 45 minutes. Runners were excluded if they were currently currently injured or they had been injured within the past month. That is, the past month before the study began. And runners were excluded if they didn't fit into the experimental shoe sizes. So the sample shoe sizes that were available were a US women's size 7.5, 8.5, and 9.5. If you didn't have that shoe size, you're out. I don't think that actually means anything or has any detrimental effects to the study itself, but it just struck me as somewhat amusing that they excluded athletes based on the size of their feet. Now, the super shoe that was used in this study, and excuse me while I pull out another prop, was the Nike Vaporfly X-S10 2. And actually, I think that's a good shoe to study. I mean, it's a really good race day shoe. And of course, as we've already talked about, the Placebo, you know what they did. They had the participants. Oh, and by the way, these participants had never run in super shoes before. I mean, if they are runners, unless they've been living under a rock, I'm sure they were aware of their existence, but they hadn't run in super shoes before this experiment. So of course, they were given a nice, shiny new pair, Nike X-S10 2s, and they were told about all the virtues. We have a very resilient foam, super lightweight upper, there is a carbon fiber plate that just springs you forward and makes you faster. Now in New Zealand these shoes cost $400 and they were well aware of the cost. They were also aware that elite runners around the world were breaking records in these shoes. So they really, jumped on the hype train and built up this shoe. The Nike X-S10 2 is a phenomenal marvel of engineering and it makes everybody who steps into it run faster. Of course they were also told about this maximal stack height, 40 millimeters in the heel, just all the bells and whistles. Now the control shoe was just some knockoff, or was it? No, you already know. This is a placebo. So the control shoe was actually another pair of Nike X-S10 2s. But in order for this illusion to be believable to the participants, they spray painted the control pair of the X-S10 2s black. So imagine this. You had a blue pair, just like I do. I don't know what color they were running in. And then you had another pair of shoes that exactly like this, but it was spray painted black. And I think it was assumed that the participants wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And in fact, most of them didn't. I know right now, to you watching this video, I think it's probably likely that you have run in a pair of super shoes. Now look, you may not be as familiar with a pair of Nike X-S10 2s as I am, just because I've had these for several years. Every once in a while I'll pull them out and look at them. And I've run in a lot of super shoes, so fairly familiar. But still, even if you're not as familiar as I am, I find it hard to believe that they wouldn't be able to see and feel the difference. But I guess that's where marketing comes in, and the power of suggestion. Because the researchers actually told the participants that this was a knockoff, that you could pick up a pair for just $100. The participants were also told that the control shoe did not have a carbon fiber plate, and the foam was just some regular run-of-the-mill foam. Like, it was a total knockoff, and there's no way the elites would use the control shoe because they were using the $400 shoe that was the actual X-S10 2. So let's jump right in and talk about the results. Oh, no, we don't want to talk about the results yet. We're actually going to talk about the experiment protocol. So basically, they started by signing their informed. Then they did a 10-minute warm-up in their own shoes. Then they sat down for 10 minutes. They were briefed on the questionnaire that they were going to be filling out. Then they did a 10-minute running economy time trial on a treadmill at 10 kilometers an hour. And I know a couple of you right now are pulling out your pace calculators or trying to figure it out on your fingers, but I'll put you out of your misery. A 10 kilometer an hour pace on a treadmill equates to a 6-minute kilometer or a 9-minute and 39-second mile. I'm not going to make any judgment on the pace, but also the treadmill was set at a 1% incline. When they were done with that 10-minute running economy test, they sat down for 10 minutes, they completed the questionnaire, and this questionnaire was where they were asked things like, how comfortable was the shoe? Just a load of questions like that. They then did a VO2 max test in their own shoes again, right? And we're not going to get into those results. I mean, we really don't care. What we care about is the experiment where they used the X-S10 2 and the control shoe, which was the spray painted X-S10 2. And here's the results you've been waiting for. Oh, by the way, it was only 2 of the participants that actually thought that maybe the control shoe was the same as the X-S10 2. So good for them. Like, it does make me wonder if they were sure that it was the same as the X-S10 2. And I also wonder if more participants thought it but didn't actually bring it up to the researchers or list it in their questionnaire. But anyway, as far as the results goes, only 2 of the participants recognized the shoes to be the same. Now get this, there were actually no significant differences in running economy between the X-S10 2 and the spray painted X-S10 2. Right, so basically the runners didn't work any harder or any less in one shoe and the other, which in hindsight, and for me telling you when we know what both shoes are, that's really not surprising. But what was surprising is that runners across the board perceived the X-S10 2, the regular colorway, not the spray painted one, they perceived the X-S10 2 as being more comfortable and actually increasing the pleasure of their running. They also thought that the X-S10 2 made running easier and it increased their performance, right? That's everything we want out of the X-S10 2. Like, when we buy a super shoe, we want A, running to feel easier, B, to run faster. But get this, right now it's really not surprising. I mean, what is surprising is that they didn't see the difference, but I think we know that that is actually coming down to being sold the product. When you're sold about all the features, you're going to feel better about running in it. The participants also perceived this shoe to have too much heel cushion and too much forefoot cushion, and overall, too many technical aspects to it. And surprisingly enough, the knockoff shoe, which was just this spray painted black, did not have enough technical aspects, or at least they perceived it to not have enough technical aspects and not enough cushioning. So I think this raises some pretty important questions for us. Like, studies like this have been done in the past, at least as far as comfort goes. To my knowledge and to the knowledge of the researchers, this is the first experiment that actually uses super shoes to gauge a difference in running economy and whether there is a placebo effect involved. But there are other studies that have shown that when a shoe is based in comfort, or at least sold as being more comfortable, runners perceive it as being more comfortable and they run better because of that increased comfort. So my question to you is, would you mind being lied to if it meant that you would run better or feel better about your shoes or feel better about your shoe purchase? I mean, actually, now I think about it, I think we're all being lied to. But perhaps, maybe there's something that I can do for you. Maybe moving forward, when I get shoes in for review, maybe I'll give like the super cheap shoes a really positive review. That way, you'll go out and buy them. You will then think that these shoes have all the technology needed to push you faster than you've ever been before, and you will perceive them as being fast and comfortable and just everything we're looking when we spend a lot of money on shoes, except I'll do it for you with cheaper shoes. So you're saving money and potentially you're still running as fast. Did I get that mixed up? Is that how it would work? I don't know, but I still want to hear from you. Do you think that you could be swayed between two identical shoes if you were sold on the features of one and then told the exact opposite for another? I gotta be honest, I know that I can be very suggestible, so perhaps maybe if it wasn't something that I was completely familiar with, I think maybe I could be persuaded. I don't know. It's a fun thought experiment though. Anyway, in a nutshell, there is a big placebo effect that happens when we watch running reviews, when we read the specs and stats on shoes, when we trust what the company is telling us about these shoes. That goes a long way into our perception of how good a shoe is. Anyway, if you have made it to this point in the video, I want you to drop that palette emoji, you know, that thing that painters hold and they've got lots of different paints on it, you know, and they dip their brush and they keep painting. Well, I want you to drop that in the comments just to let me know that you have made it to this point in the video, and obviously the paint is because the next %2s were painted in order to put off the participants. But for now, it's Matt B. This has been a video on the placebo effect and super shoes. Be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.